An arrogant police officer, holding a cup of hot coffee, deliberately threw it in the face of a black woman simply because she dared to demand fair treatment. What he didn't expect was that this woman was the newly appointed and highly authoritative police chief. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel to join us for thrilling stories you won't want to miss. Lily Moore walked into the police station with a confident yet understated demeanor. She wore a dark shirt and jeans, her long black hair neatly tied back. No one paid her much attention, dismissing her as just another civilian seeking help from the representatives of the law. "What do you need?" Jake Turner, a burly officer with cold eyes, spoke up as Lily approached the front desk. He didn't bother looking up from his computer screen, his tone arrogant and irritated. "I'm here to report a theft," Lily replied, her voice calm yet firm. Jake raised his head, narrowing his eyes as he looked her up and down. "Another one, huh?" He let out a mocking laugh, loud enough for others nearby to hear. "Let me guess, a phone? Or maybe a purse. Those things never turn up again, lady." Lily stared directly into Jake's eyes, unfazed. "I want to file a report. That is my right." Her resolve seemed to test Jake's patience. He stood up, grabbed the coffee cup on his desk, and moved closer to her. A few other officers in the station glanced up, but none dared intervene. Some turned away, pretending to be busy, though their expressions betrayed unease. "Listen," Jake said, lowering his voice to a threatening tone. "People like you should know their place. We've got more important things to deal with than petty stuff. Got it?" Before Lily could respond, Jake tilted his coffee cup and, with a quick motion, splashed the scalding liquid at her. The sound of coffee hitting her face and dripping onto her shirt cut through the silence. Lily flinched and stepped back, one cheek stinging from the heat, but her gaze remained steady. The atmosphere in the station grew oppressively tense. A young officer named Chris Meyer, standing nearby, clenched his fists as though about to speak up, but Jake's sharp glare stopped him in his tracks. Other officers simply looked down, avoiding involvement for fear of becoming targets themselves. "Consider that a lesson in respect," Jake said coldly. He returned to his desk, sat down, and resumed his work as if nothing had happened. "Now, get lost." Lily wiped her face with her hand, feeling the eyes of everyone in the room on her. There was pity, there was helplessness, but no one took action. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. She wouldn't give Jake the satisfaction of seeing her falter. Not yet. "Thank you for showing me exactly how things work around here," Lily said quietly, but with a note of steely resolve. She turned and walked out, leaving an oppressive silence hanging in the air. Her footsteps echoed through the station, a sharp reminder of the confrontation that had just occurred. Lily walked briskly down the hallway of the police station, coffee dripping from her chin onto the tiled floor. The fluorescent lights reflected off her scalded skin, but she neither stopped nor looked back. Jake's words echoed in her mind, not for the insult, but for the smugness, the contempt of someone too accustomed to unchecked power. The door at the end of the hallway opened. A middle-aged officer with a composed demeanor stood waiting. It was Deputy Chief Thomas Wright, one of the few people Lily had trusted with her true identity in advance. "Are you all right, Chief?" Thomas asked, his voice soft but filled with concern. "I'm fine," Lily replied, her tone colder than usual. "I assume you heard everything." Thomas nodded, his gaze heavy with understanding. "I wanted to intervene, but you insisted we not reveal anything about you until you observed things for yourself." Lily loosened her hair tie, letting her long black hair fall over her shoulder, partially concealing her reddened cheek. "I needed to see it," she said, her voice calm but tinged with restrained anger. I needed to see how this system truly operates when no one knows who I am. Back at his desk, Jake Turner leaned back in his worn swivel chair, oblivious to the grave mistake he had just made. For Jake, it was just another day at work, a place where he wielded absolute power over everyone. He had been at this station for over 15 years, not known for excellence but for leveraging connections and authority to climb the ranks. Jake had once harbored big dreams. In his youth, he had been an idealistic officer who believed justice could change the world. But after witnessing his parents murdered in a robbery where the culprits were never caught, Jake began to see justice as an unattainable luxury. Bitterness and cynicism transformed him into a man who only believed in power, something he could control and use to protect himself. He had built a network of allies in the station, relying on fear and enforced loyalty. Jake knew how to exploit people's weaknesses, from young officers like Chris Meyer, too scared to defy him, to former supervisors willing to cover up his misconduct to avoid trouble. But what Jake didn't know was that his complacency had led him to make the greatest mistake of his career, crossing a woman far more powerful than him. Lily stood before the mirror in her office, washing the coffee off her face. The cold water soothed the burning pain but could not dispel her indignation. Taking a deep breath, she dried her face, her eyes regaining their characteristic sharp and unyielding look. "I want all officers gathered in the briefing room immediately," she told Thomas, who was standing silently by the door. Thomas simply nodded, refraining from asking any questions. Minutes later, the atmosphere in the briefing room was tense as officers filed in one by one. Jake entered last, still exuding his usual air of indifference. He took a seat near the corner of the room, crossing his arms with a smirk that seemed to challenge authority. When Lily entered, the room fell silent. No one recognized her immediately, but as she set a leather case on the table, straightened her posture, and looked directly at everyone in the room, a few officers began to sense something was different. "Good morning," Lily began, her voice firm and commanding. "I understand you've had an eventful start to your day. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lily Moore, and as of today, I am your new chief of police." A heavy silence enveloped the room. Jake, sitting at the far end of the table, froze. The smug grin vanished from his face momentarily, replaced by an expression of discomfort and disbelief. "No way," Jake muttered, loud enough for Lily to hear. She turned to him, her gaze icy and authoritative. "Oh yes, Jake Turner. I'm very much looking forward to working with you." The other officers exchanged uneasy glances, none daring to speak. The tension in the room was palpable, like a ticking time bomb. "I've spent the past 2 weeks observing this station," Lily continued, her eyes scanning the room. "I've seen how you operate when you think no one is watching. And let me be blunt, there's a lot that needs to change." Jake swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. But deep down, he knew the game had shifted. For the first time in years, he felt he might no longer be the one in control. The meeting room remained steeped in heavy silence as Lily Moore concluded her introduction. Despite the clarity and strength in her voice, no one spoke. The officers avoided her gaze, except for a few who stole furtive glances at Jake Turner. Jake sat motionless, his hands gripping the arms of his chair tightly. He tried to mask the anger boiling inside him with a calm facade, but his expression betrayed him. When the meeting ended, the officers quietly left the room, leaving Jake alone. Chris Meyer, a young officer who had recently joined the force, lingered at the doorway. He hesitated, his eyes darting toward Jake. A sense of injustice stirred within him, but he dared not say anything. Though inexperienced, Chris understood the extent of Jake's power within the station. "Ridiculous, isn't it?" Jake suddenly spoke, startling Chris. "Sorry, what?" Chris asked, trying to conceal his tension. Jake stood and approached Chris, his eyes sharp as knives. "Who does she think she is? Someone walking in from the outside, knowing nothing about how we operate here. She won't last long. Trust me." Chris simply nodded and quickly walked away. He couldn't bear to face Jake for another second, but deep down he felt a growing unease. The atmosphere in the station shifted immediately after the meeting. Whispers began to spread through the hallways. Some officers wondered who Lily was, how she had earned the position of police chief, and whether she was truly fit to lead them. Yet, for the most part, silence prevailed. A silence everyone recognized as fear and caution. Jake, on the other hand, maintained his usual smug demeanor. He was confident Lily wouldn't survive in this environment for long. Jake understood the power dynamics in the station better than anyone and knew how to manipulate them to maintain his position. On the other side of the station, Chris Meyer sat at his desk, torn between frustration and fear. He was well aware of Jake's influence and the lengths he could go to preserve his authority. But, in his heart, Chris knew that staying silent only allowed things to worsen. This time, however, the situation was different. Jake recognized that Lily wasn't an easy adversary. She wasn't like the previous superiors who had been willing to compromise for the sake of keeping the peace. She presented a genuine threat to his methods and the network of power he had meticulously constructed over the years. Chris couldn't shake thoughts of Lily and the events in the meeting room. He sensed something different about her, a determination and decisiveness he hadn't seen in other leaders. Yet he also felt the isolation she was facing. The whispers persisted. Some officers speculated that Lily would be broken quickly, while others remained neutral, waiting to see how the situation unfolded. "What do you think? Does she stand a chance?" Jeff, a middle-aged officer with a tendency to avoid conflicts, asked Chris as they worked an afternoon shift together. Chris shrugged. "I don't know, but she seems serious." Jeff chuckled derisively. "Serious? That'll get you nowhere here. Being serious just makes you a target faster." Chris stayed silent, though he knew Jeff wasn't entirely wrong. He felt trapped between two forces, his dissatisfaction with Jake and his fear that speaking out would ruin his career. Lily Moore stood by the window of her new office, gazing out at the gray sky outside. Light rain fell, droplets tapping gently against the glass and forming small streams that seemed to paint a complex story. Inside, the dim glow of her desk lamp illuminated thick stacks of files. Yet her mind wasn't here. It had drifted to the past, a part of her memory that was both her greatest motivation and her heaviest burden. Lily had grown up in a poor neighborhood where her grandmother, Evelyn Moore, was her greatest inspiration. A relentless social activist, Evelyn always said, "Justice isn't something handed to you. You have to fight for it, piece by piece." One memory etched deeply in Lily's mind was seeing Evelyn shoved to the ground by a police officer simply for demanding justice. Evelyn's teachings and actions made Lily realize that to create change, she had to step inside the system and work from within. Lily had devoted her life to fulfilling that promise. After graduating college with a degree in criminal law, she joined the police force, starting at the bottom. Her early days in the field were exhausting. Male colleagues often dismissed her, viewing her as a weak woman unfit for the job. But Lily was undeterred. She worked hard, learned diligently, and proved herself through her actions. One person who noticed Lily was a veteran officer, Raymond Harris. With over 3 decades of experience, Harris was respected for his intelligence and extensive knowledge. He became Lily's mentor, teaching her how to handle complex cases, withstand pressure, and, most importantly, hold on to her principles in a system riddled with compromise. "Lily, this profession isn't perfect," Harris once told her, "but if you keep a cool head and a warm heart, you'll make a difference." With Harris's guidance, Lily quickly rose through the ranks. She was assigned major cases and recognized as one of the most promising officers. But then, everything changed when she uncovered a shocking secret. During an internal investigation, Lily stumbled across Harris's name in a series of documents linked to corruption. He had accepted bribes from an organized crime group to overlook critical evidence. Lily didn't want to believe it, but when she confronted Harris, he didn't deny it. "You don't understand, Lily," Harris said, his voice heavy with the weight of years. "This system will crush you if you don't learn to play by its rules." Harris's admission devastated Lily more than anything else ever had. She had viewed him as a second father, someone she trusted implicitly. But now, he was just another cog in the very system she was fighting to change. Instead of giving up, Lily took it as a painful reminder that she could never compromise, no matter the cost. Through years of challenges and triumphs, Lily became not just an exceptional officer, but a respected leader. When she was promoted to police chief, she knew it was her chance to fulfill the promise she had made to herself and Evelyn. But she also knew the road ahead would be anything but smooth. People like Jake Turner represented everything she had to fight against. They weren't just individuals abusing their power. They were products of a system that had enabled and protected them for years. Jake Turner sat motionless in his small office, the fluorescent light casting a harsh glow on his face. Despite the weariness etched into his features, his ever-present arrogance remained. His hand gripped the edge of his desk tightly, his eyes fixed on the wall in front of him where medals and certificates from years past hung. It seemed as though he was trying to extract some meaning from what was once called a career. Jake Turner had once been a passionate officer with the ideals of protecting justice. However, after the tragic death of his parents during a robbery in which the perpetrators were never caught, his faith in the justice system was shattered. Jake joined the police force, not to uphold justice but to gain control and protect himself. Over time, he became bitter and cynical, using his power to dominate and manipulate. To Jake, justice no longer existed. Only strength could ensure his survival. His moral decay turned him into a tyrant, fostering a culture of fear within the precinct where younger officers like Chris Meyer felt powerless against him. As Jake climbed higher in the ranks, he no longer saw his job as a responsibility, but as a tool to consolidate his power. The medals on his wall were largely the result of covering up misconduct or taking credit for the work of others. Jake believed he was doing what was necessary. In his mind, his rigidity and authoritarianism were the only ways to maintain order. However, his approach alienated morally upright colleagues and created an environment of fear within the station. Young officers like Chris Meyer looked at him with a mix of resentment and fear, but none dared to challenge him. In the early days of his abuse of power, Jake felt some pangs of guilt, but gradually that feeling disappeared. He convinced himself that everything he did was for a greater purpose, maintaining order and protecting himself from any threats. Acts of violence and discriminatory behavior became, in his eyes, a necessary part of the job. Lily Moore's arrival reignited Jake's greatest fear, losing control. He didn't just see Lily as a new leader, but as the embodiment of everything he despised: faith in justice and the system. To Jake, Lily wasn't a reformer. She was a threat determined to destroy everything he had built. "If she wants a fight, I'll show her she's picked the wrong person," Jake muttered to himself, a cold smile spreading across his face. But deep down, Jake knew that Lily wasn't like the others he had dealt with before. She wasn't someone who could be easily manipulated or subdued, and that unsettled him more than anything. Jake Turner strode through the hallway of the police station, his smug smile firmly in place after his recent conversation with a colleague. He felt secure, confident that nothing within this system could shake his hold on power. But at the end of the hall, his steps faltered as he noticed a group of officers quietly gathering outside the large conference room. Jake frowned. An unscheduled meeting? This was unusual. Suspecting it might be a power move by Lily Moore, Jake walked in slowly, choosing a seat at the far end of the table, subtly asserting that he wouldn't be forced into doing anything against his will. The atmosphere in the conference room was heavy, almost suffocating. Officers whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. A few glanced at Jake, but none dared to speak up. Chris Meyer sat near the door, nervously flipping a pen back and forth in his hand, trying to mask his tension. He felt as though something monumental was about to happen, something that could change everything. The door to the conference room swung open, and Lily entered. She wore a pristine police uniform, her newly minted badge gleaming on her chest. Her presence silenced the room instantly. Standing tall, her gaze swept across everyone in the room. "Good morning," she began, her tone calm, but imbued with undeniable authority. "I know you're wondering why we're here today. Let me make it clear." Lily stepped to the head of the table, placing her hands firmly on it as she looked directly at Jake. "My name is Lily Moore, and I am your new chief of police." The room froze for a few seconds. A couple of officers let out quiet, involuntary sounds of shock. Chris's eyes widened, fixed on Lily in disbelief. Jeff, the middle-aged officer sitting nearby, was motionless, but his expression brightened with a glimmer of hope, mixed with astonishment. At the far end of the table, Jake Turner instinctively clenched his jaw, his eyes blazing with anger. He folded his arms across his chest, trying to appear composed, but the rigid tension in his posture gave him away. A wave of irritation surged within him. This was not what he had anticipated. A woman, nothing more, nothing less, had dared to walk in and threaten the foundation of everything he had built. Lily allowed the reactions to settle before continuing. "I'm not here to make friends with everyone," she said, her voice steady but sharp. "I'm here to ensure that this station operates as it should, protecting and serving the community, not protecting the personal power of any individual." Jake let out a derisive laugh, loud enough for Lily to hear. "Do you think you can change anything here?" he asked, his tone dripping with mockery. Lily turned her gaze to him, her eyes as sharp as a blade. "I don't think, Jake. I know." Taking a deep breath, Lily placed a thick folder on the table. "This is the first step in my reform plan," she announced, her eyes scanning the room. "This isn't a purge. It's an opportunity for everyone to start doing things the right way." She opened the folder, revealing a detailed list of changes she intended to implement. Mandatory ethics training, a restructured process for handling citizen complaints, and the establishment of an independent internal oversight unit. "I will not tolerate abuse of power or any form of injustice in this station," Lily declared, her voice unwavering. "If you have something to hide, you'd better come forward now. If you don't, I will find it." Her words were not a threat. They were a promise. Everyone in the room could feel it. Some officers lowered their heads, visibly uneasy. Others, like Chris, felt a flicker of hope, a hope that this station could finally become a better place to work. Jake leaned back in his chair, narrowing his eyes. He studied Lily as though sizing up an adversary. Her words only fueled his hatred. He didn't see her initiative as an opportunity, but as the greatest threat he had ever faced to his power. He stood, casting a challenging glance at Lily. "You can say whatever you want," Jake said, his tone calm but brimming with defiance. "But in the end, you'll see this system isn't as easy to change as you think." Lily's gaze didn't waver. "Then, I guess we'll see who's right, Jake." Jake walked out of the conference room, not in defeat, but with something darker brewing. In his mind, a new plan was taking shape, a plan to bring Lily Moore down before she had the chance to deliver on her promises. Jake Turner slammed the door to his office behind him, the echo startling a few colleagues nearby who turned to look. But no one dared to say anything. The atmosphere in the station felt like an overstrung wire, ready to snap at any moment. Jake, his face dark with anger, slumped into his chair, bloodshot eyes fixed on the medals hanging on the wall. He felt as though everything he had built in his career was being threatened by Lily Moore. She doesn't just want to change the system, Jake thought. She wants to destroy it. Jake knew Lily wouldn't be easily taken down, but he also recognized her vulnerability, her newness. A new leader, with little time to establish trust, was an easy target for disgruntled individuals. That evening, Jake convened a small group of officers he believed were loyal to him. They were people who had worked under him for years. Some coerced into allegiance, others willingly siding with him out of fear of losing the privileges he had helped them maintain. "Listen," Jake said, his voice low and authoritative. "She's not here to help this station. She's here to turn all of us into pawns for her so-called reform agenda. Tell me, who here hasn't made mistakes? If she starts digging, none of us will walk away unscathed." Jeff, a reserved senior officer, hesitated before speaking. "But Jake, she said this is an opportunity for everyone to start fresh. She's not targeting anyone." Jake narrowed his eyes at Jeff, his tone dropping to a menacing whisper. "Do you believe that? Believe she'll leave us alone? Trust me, when she needs a scapegoat to make an example, it'll be us. Every single one of us in this room." Jake's words sowed seeds of vague fear among the officers. They didn't entirely trust him, but they lacked the courage to defy him. Their silent acquiescence was all Jake needed. The next morning, Jake began executing his plan. He seized every opportunity to undermine Lily in conversations with colleagues, emphasizing her lack of understanding about how the system worked and accusing her of trying to tear it down instead of building it back up. "She doesn't know anything about how we operate here," Jake said to a group of officers during a break. "She thinks a few reform plans will change anything? It's naive." But Jake didn't stop at internal manipulation. He reached out to Mark Calloway, a high-ranking official, seeking support. "If she brings me down, the whole system we've built will collapse," Jake argued. Calloway agreed to assist but warned, "You're just a pawn. Don't disappoint me." Jake nodded, keeping his emotions in check. He knew he was entering a dangerous alliance, but he was willing to risk everything to maintain his power. With Calloway's backing, Jake started collaborating with local reporters eager for a sensational story. He fed them carefully constructed narratives. Lily was an outsider, clueless about the local community, imposing her will on the entire system. Jake didn't hesitate to imply that Lily was hunting officers to boost her image. Within days, articles began surfacing in minor news outlets, portraying Lily as an inexperienced leader disrupting the police station with personal ambitions. The reports didn't outright accuse her of wrongdoing, but they planted seeds of doubt. Jake didn't realize he was merely a pawn in a larger game orchestrated by Calloway and his ilk. They didn't care about Jake's survival. He was a shield, a decoy to protect their greater interests. But Jake, blinded by arrogance, believed he was in control. Not one to give up easily, Jake escalated his efforts when he felt cornered by mounting evidence against him. He convinced Calloway to arrange a private meeting with a prominent judge, someone Calloway had helped climb the ranks. During the meeting, Jake made a bold offer. "Help me get out of this, and I'll make sure no investigation ever touches you." He even presented a carefully fabricated dossier suggesting that Lily had once suppressed crucial evidence in a past case. If the document were leaked, it could destroy her credibility in an instant. Calloway, sensing the situation's volatility, agreed to help but set one condition. "You handle this yourself. If you fail, I want no part in it." Jake agreed. Days later, the fabricated dossier was leaked to a major newspaper. The story exploded with a headline: "Police Chief Lily Moore accused of suppressing evidence, the truth behind a decades-old case." The news sent shockwaves through the station and the public. Supporters of Lily began to question her integrity, while her critics found new ammunition to attack her. Reporters swarmed the station, demanding a response from Lily. Meanwhile, Jake watched the chaos he had orchestrated from a distance, convinced he had delivered a decisive blow. She might be strong, but no one can withstand pressure from both the system and the public, Jake thought, a calculated smile spreading across his face. In the days following Jake's smear campaign, the atmosphere in the police station felt cloaked in a thick fog of suspicion and tension. Lily Moore, outwardly composed, was acutely aware that every move she made was being scrutinized. The articles targeting her spread quickly, planting seeds of doubt even among officers who had silently supported her. Yet Lily remained steadfast. She understood this was not just a battle against Jake Turner, but against a much larger network hiding behind him. Lily immediately recognized the orchestrated smear as part of Jake's plan. With the help of Chris and Thomas, she swiftly initiated an internal investigation to verify the authenticity of the dossier. Meanwhile, she addressed the media with a direct statement: "The truth doesn't need to be hidden. I'm ready to cooperate with any investigation to prove that this dossier is a fabrication." The investigation quickly revealed irregularities in the documents. Signatures had been expertly forged, and the data didn't match the original records. Lily even uncovered evidence that one of Jake's loyal officers had secretly accessed old files to create the fake evidence. With support from forensic experts, Lily presented the investigation's findings to the public, proving the dossier was nothing more than a carefully staged attempt to discredit her. "Jake Turner thinks he can manipulate justice," Lily declared in a press conference, "but justice is not so easily bent. The truth will always prevail, no matter how deeply it's buried." Late one evening, as Lily worked in her office, a soft knock interrupted her focus. She looked up to see Chris Meyer standing hesitantly at the door, his expression anxious. "Come in, Chris," Lily said, her tone reassuring. Chris stepped inside, clutching a thick file. "Chief, I think you need to see this," he said, his voice trembling. Frowning, Lily took the file from Chris. As she opened it, her eyes scanned pages filled with financial records, redacted internal memos, and printed email chains. The documents painted a clear picture. Jake was not acting alone. He was backed by a powerful group of individuals who had used their influence to cover up his misconduct for years. "Chris, where did you get this?" Lily asked, her gaze sharp. Chris swallowed hard, lowering his voice. "I found it in the archives. They think I'm just a rookie who doesn't know anything, but I overheard some conversations and got curious. I copied everything before they could clean it up. Do you realize the danger you've put yourself in? Lily asked, her tone serious. I do, Chris replied, his eyes filled with determination. But if you don't act on this, no one else will. Lily studied Chris for a long moment, sensing the internal struggle he had endured. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a glimmer of hope in the darkness of betrayal and corruption. Lily spent the entire night analyzing the documents Chris had provided. A horrifying picture emerged. Jake was the linchpin of a network involving officers and high-ranking officials, including members of the city administration. The emails revealed a coordinated effort to cover up everything from wrongful arrests to bribes taken from criminal enterprises. The documents also exposed the role of Mark Calloway, whom Jake had met earlier. Calloway was not just a powerful official, but one of the main sponsors of these corrupt activities. He used his network to shield Jake, treating him as a tool to execute shady operations without leaving a trace. Lily felt a surge of anger, but also knew the fight now extended far beyond Jake Turner. She was confronting a system built on silence and complicity. The next day, Chris noticed he was being watched. He caught unfamiliar glances from his colleagues and received unexpected questions from officers who had never shown interest in him before. Jake had begun to suspect something. One evening, as Chris left the station, he spotted a strange car parked at the corner, its headlights glaring, engine idling. His heart pounded, but he maintained his composure and quickened his pace toward his car. As he unlocked the door, a voice called out from the shadows, "Meyer, be careful. You don't know who you're messing with." Chris spun around but saw no one. The car roared off, leaving him standing in the dark, cold sweat dripping down his temple. Lily knew she couldn't keep the findings secret for long. She called a meeting with her trusted team, including Deputy Chief Thomas Wright and a few other reliable officers. Presenting the documents Chris had uncovered, she emphasized the gravity of the situation. "This is no longer about one individual," Lily said firmly. "We're up against a system. But if we act strategically, we can dismantle it." Thomas nodded, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "Do you have a plan?" "We need to go public," Lily replied. "But not yet. First, I want more evidence. We have to ensure that when we strike, there's no room for anyone to cover it up." The next morning, as Lily Moore walked into the police station, the atmosphere was different. Every eye turned to her, not with the usual respect or deference, but with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Whispered conversations seemed to echo down the hallways. Lily didn't need to ask. She knew something was happening. Thomas Wright, her deputy chief, hurried toward her with a grave expression. "Chief, you need to see this," he said, holding out a phone. On the screen was a freshly published article. The bold headline read, "New Leader Faces Troubled Past. Who is Lily Moore?" The article accused Lily of using personal connections to advance her career, insinuating that she had benefited from favoritism by her former mentor, Raymond Harris, who was now under investigation for corruption. The claims were carefully crafted, not entirely false, but not wholly accurate either, designed to mislead readers. Worse still, the article highlighted a past case Lily had handled years ago, pointing out her failure when key evidence went missing under her watch. Lily gripped the phone tightly, her eyes fixed on the screen. Though she was accustomed to the pressures of her job, this personal attack made it difficult to maintain her composure. She knew the article wasn't a coincidence. It was another move in Jake's plan. "We can issue an immediate rebuttal," Thomas said, his voice laced with concern. "I'll contact legal." No, Lily replied firmly. If we react now, it'll only amplify the story. I want to know who's behind this. Thomas nodded, though his worry was evident. Lily, you know this won't stop here, don't you? That evening, when Lily returned home, she sensed something was off. The living room window was slightly ajar, even though she distinctly remembered locking it before leaving. A feeling of unease crept over her. Lily stepped inside, instinctively resting her hand on the gun at her hip. On the kitchen table lay an old family photo. It was a picture of Lily as a child with her grandmother, Evelyn, a cherished keepsake from her childhood. But what sent a chill down her spine was the handwritten note on the back. Don't forget what you've left behind. Lily looked around but found no one. It was a clear threat, a deliberate message targeting her deepest vulnerabilities. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself, though her mind buzzed with questions. Who had done this? And how much did they know? The next morning, Lily called an emergency meeting with her trusted team. She laid the article on the table, her sharp gaze sweeping across the room. Someone in this station has been talking to the press, she said, her voice low but commanding. And if I find out who it is, there will be serious consequences. No one responded, but the tension in the room was palpable. A few officers avoided Lily's gaze. Chris Meyer, sitting in a corner, felt the weight of the moment, but knew he couldn't speak up just yet. After the meeting, Thomas entered Lily's office holding a report. We've traced the source of the article, he said. It came from an anonymous tip within the station, and I'm afraid it's Jeff. Lily closed her eyes briefly, fighting back a wave of disappointment. Jeff, a senior officer she had believed she could trust, had betrayed her. Not only had he leaked information, but he had also inflated and distorted the truth to damage her. Why? Lily asked, her voice quiet but razor-sharp. Jake, Thomas replied. I think Jake promised him something, maybe a promotion or simply protection. In the days that followed, Lily faced a growing wave of criticism from both the media and some officers in the station. Whispered conversations grew louder, and skeptical glances became more obvious. The most painful part, however, was the isolation. While she still had allies like Chris and Thomas, Lily knew this battle wasn't just about reforming the system. It was about defending her reputation and regaining trust. Late one night, alone in her office, Lily stared out the window. The city lights sparkled, but she felt like she was standing in darkness. She recalled her grandmother Evelyn's words. Justice isn't something you wait for, Lily. You have to fight for it, even if you have to fight alone. Taking a deep breath, her gaze hardened with determination. She knew she couldn't let Jake and those backing him win. But first, she needed to rebuild trust among her peers and confront the accusations head-on. Lily Moore sat in her office, the glow from her computer screen casting shadows on her tense face. The documents from the internal investigation lay before her, but her thoughts were consumed by the chaos outside. The barrage of articles attacking her was intensifying, and now an even greater threat loomed. Jake Turner had just launched another insidious move. That morning, a video surfaced across social media and local news outlets. In the video, Jake sat in a dimly lit room, his face calm but tinged with bitterness. He introduced himself as an insider speaking out for justice. While he didn't attack Lily directly, he wove a series of carefully distorted stories that painted her as a tyrannical, incompetent leader, abusing her power to punish dissenters. This isn't just about me, Jake said, staring straight into the camera. This is about all the officers who have dedicated their lives to the force, only to be discarded like pawns. Lily Moore doesn't care about justice. She only cares about consolidating her power. The video spread rapidly, catching the attention of major media outlets. Some journalists began dubbing Jake a whistleblower, casting him as a central figure in a supposed fight against abuses of power by Lily. His stories lacked concrete evidence, but they were vague enough to sow doubt in the public's mind. Within days, the media-fueled tension spilled into the community. A group of citizens, galvanized by Jake's video and the accompanying articles, organized a large protest outside the police station. Protesters held signs reading, "Justice for Jake Turner," "Lily Moore, resign," and "We need real leadership." Lily stood by her office window, gazing at the crowd below. Their chants echoed upward, but she refused to let herself waver. Thomas entered the office, warning her about officers leaning toward Jake's side, while internal meetings were increasingly laced with provocative questions aimed at undermining her authority. "People are losing faith," one officer said during a meeting. "We can't ignore this. If we don't act now, the station will lose the community's trust." Lily remained composed, though she knew this sentiment wasn't merely personal opinion. It was part of Jake's carefully orchestrated strategy. He wasn't just attacking her reputation, he was attempting to divide her team and erode her internal support. That evening, Lily convened an emergency meeting with her remaining loyal allies, including Thomas and Chris Meyer. She laid out new evidence her team had uncovered about Jake's connections to the corruption network. The documents implicated not just Jake, but also several high-ranking individuals in the system. "We can't let him control the narrative any longer," Lily said firmly. "We need to bring the truth to light, but we must do it the right way. One wrong move and everything we've worked for will only serve his agenda." Thomas nodded. "But with public opinion against you, how can we rebuild trust?" Lily paused, then replied, "We don't need to rebuild trust immediately. What we need is the truth. The truth will speak for itself." In the days that followed, Lily and her team worked tirelessly, scrutinizing every document and verifying every detail. Lily reached out to trusted journalists, those willing to investigate and uncover the facts rather than chase sensational headlines. Meanwhile, Jake escalated his campaign. He held informal press briefings, inviting friendly journalists to hear his side of the story. Every word he spoke, every gesture he made, was carefully calculated to frame himself as the victim and Lily as a tyrant. Yet, Jake was unaware that his actions were beginning to reveal cracks in his facade. Lily's team worked day and night, piecing together the evidence that would expose the full scope of corruption. They knew that once they acted, there could be no missteps. Their preparation wasn't just for Lily's vindication, but to dismantle the network that had enabled Jake and others like him for years. The battle lines were drawn. While Jake played the victim, Lily focused on the truth. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, Lily could see the path ahead clearly. Jake Turner walked into the police station that morning with his usual air of confidence, but the smug glint in his eyes seemed dimmer than before. His smear campaign against Lily had caused a public uproar, but deep down, Jake couldn't deny a growing unease. He knew the evidence Lily held, if used correctly, was enough to bring him down. As Jake sat at his desk, a few officers cast him sidelong glances, while others looked visibly anxious. He noticed the shift in their demeanor, but instead of feeling threatened, he convinced himself he still held control. "Just one more move," he thought to himself. "Just one more, and she won't be able to touch me." That morning, Lily held a press conference. She stood before the cameras, calm and composed, though her eyes shone with determination. Before her lay a thick folder, the evidence her team had painstakingly gathered and verified over the past weeks. As the press conference began, the tension in the room was palpable. Members of the media, the public, and even a few officers stood watching, awaiting her explanation. But just as Lily was about to speak, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A group of protesters stormed in, carrying signs and shouting demands for justice for Jake Turner. They waved banners with slogans like, "Justice for Jake," and "Fake Police Chief." "Our community deserves the truth," Lily said, her voice steady and resolute. "Today, I will reveal evidence proving that not just one individual, but an entire network has manipulated the justice system and abused their power for years." She began presenting the evidence, starting with financial documents showing bribes Jake had accepted, followed by internal emails proving his collusion with Mark Calloway to cover up misconduct. The evidence also tied Jake to unlawful arrests and the intimidation of junior officers. But it wasn't just about Jake. Lily named higher-profile individuals implicated in the network, exposing Jake's connections to Calloway and other key figures in the corruption ring. These individuals had not only shielded Jake, but also used him as a tool to maintain their power and benefits. The room fell into stunned silence as Lily dropped the most damning revelation. Calloway had misappropriated community funds to finance illegal activities, including smear campaigns targeting her. Reporters immediately began shouting questions, but Lily maintained her composure, emphasizing that this was just the tip of the iceberg. As Lily calmly signaled officers to maintain order, the protesters refused to back down. One man in the crowd shouted, "She's destroyed this system. Make her pay." His words seemed to incite further agitation among the group. At that moment, the back door of the room opened. Jake Turner walked in, exuding an icy confidence. To the protesters, he wasn't a man under investigation. He was a hero. Jake offered a faint, mocking smile as he slowly approached Lily, his presence silencing the room with tension. "Oh, Lily Moore," Jake said, his voice low and taunting. "I never thought you'd go to such lengths just to take me down." Lily's gaze didn't waver, her eyes sharp as blades. "Jake, you know this isn't just about you. This is about people like you, those who use power for personal gain instead of protecting the community." Jake chuckled coldly, taking another step forward, asserting dominance. "You can try all you want, but you'll never bring down this system. I'm part of it, Lily. And you? You're just an outsider." Lily met his challenge head-on, her voice unwavering. "You're right, Jake. The system is bigger than both of us. But it only thrives because people like you are allowed to exploit it. I won't let that continue." At that moment, officers from the Internal Investigative Unit entered, breaking the standoff. "Jake Turner, you're under arrest for bribery, abuse of power, and obstruction of justice," one officer declared, his voice cutting through the tension. Jake froze for a moment, but quickly regained his composure. "You think you've won, Lily? This game isn't over yet." As he was led away, Jake turned to give Lily one last defiant glare. She remained silent, her steely gaze following him out. The room was silent, though the tension lingered. Lily knew this was only a small battle in a much larger war, but it was a critical victory. News of Jake's arrest spread rapidly across the city. The public reaction was divided. While some saw Lily as a force for justice, others criticized her for going too far, and some questioned how Jake had been allowed to operate unchecked for so long. Meanwhile, Mark Calloway and others implicated in the investigation began to feel the heat. Desperate to avoid exposure, they scrambled to destroy or conceal evidence, but Lily acted swiftly, ensuring their efforts were thwarted. Despite this progress, Lily knew the fight against these entrenched forces would be anything but easy. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but she was determined to see it through, one battle at a time. As the doors of the police vehicle carrying Jake Turner closed behind him, a palpable sense of relief filled the police station. Yet the tension lingered, a reminder that Jake's fall was not just the end of one man, but a warning to everyone who had compromised or turned a blind eye within the system. For Lily Moore, it marked the conclusion of the first battle, but she knew the real fight was just beginning. In the days following Jake's arrest, Lily initiated critical reforms, prioritizing transparency and complaint handling, improving ethical training, and hosting public forums became her immediate focus. At one community meeting, a man stood up and bluntly asked, "We've lost faith in you people a long time ago. How can you guarantee this won't happen again?" Lily responded with quiet determination. "I can't change the past, but I promise that anyone who makes a mistake, including myself, will be held accountable." Her response didn't earn applause, but the attentive gazes from the crowd hinted at the beginning of trust. Late one night, alone in her office, Lily reflected on her grandmother Evelyn's words. "Justice isn't something you wait for. You fight for it." Those words reminded her that the journey had just begun, and that even small steps could lead to meaningful change. By the following month, the police station had visibly transformed. Ethical training programs improved, citizen complaints were handled transparently, and team morale began to recover. Small, consistent efforts started to restore the community's faith. In the break room, officers who had once been wary or exhausted now shared relaxed laughter, their stories no longer boasting about bending rules, but celebrating doing the right thing. Chris Meyer, once a symbol of silence, became one of the station's strongest voices. One afternoon, he visited Lily in her office and said with rare sincerity, "You've changed not just this station, but me. I used to think I was just a cog in a giant machine, but now I realize every action matters. Thank you for not giving up, even when I didn't dare to stand by you." Lily smiled warmly, pride shining in her eyes. "I didn't do this alone, Chris," she replied. "Everyone here, including you, is part of this change. This is our collective effort." Community meetings also began shifting perspectives. At one gathering, a woman who had once harshly criticized Lily stood and said, "I wasn't sure I believed in you when you started, but now I see the difference. Thank you for facing what others avoided." During the station's final meeting before the holiday break, Lily stood before her officers. The room was a mix of seasoned veterans and fresh recruits. Taking a deep breath, she began, her voice resolute yet empathetic. "We've endured tough times," she said. "Not just external challenges, but internal struggles with ourselves. What we've accomplished isn't just about fixing a broken system, it's about rebuilding trust. We're doing this not just for ourselves, but for the community that has entrusted us with their protection." She paused, letting her words resonate. Her tone softened as she continued. "Justice isn't a destination. It's a journey that requires people like us to keep striving. We will make mistakes, but what matters is how we face them and make amends. Remember, our mission isn't just to enforce the law, it's to be the embodiment of trust." When Lily finished, the officers quietly left the room. As she gathered her papers, an older woman entered. It was Karen, a longtime resident of the area and one of Lily's fiercest critics at earlier community meetings. "Chief Moore, may I speak with you?" Karen's voice wavered. Surprised but composed, Lily gestured for her to sit. Karen hesitated, gripping her handbag tightly before continuing. I I thought you were just another person pretending to care, like so many before. I didn't think you truly cared about us." She paused, struggling with her emotions. "But I was wrong. You helped my son avoid a terrible mistake. You didn't just help him. You helped me see that not everyone in this station is bad." Lily listened silently, her expression softening. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot to me. I'm just doing my job, but I promise this community will not be let down again." Before leaving, Karen clasped Lily's hand tightly, her eyes glistening. "Don't stop, Chief Moore. We need you." As Karen left, a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Jeff, the officer who had betrayed Lily and Jake's scheme. He hesitated before stepping inside. "Chief," Jeff began, his voice halting. I know I was wrong. I have no excuse, but I want to be part of the change you're making. I want to fix what I broke." Lily studied him for a long moment before responding. "Actions speak louder than words, Jeff. If you truly want to change, you'll get the chance. But I need your commitment." Jeff nodded, his eyes reflecting determination. "I'm committed. Thank you for not turning your back on me." The room fell silent, not with fear or doubt, but with the quiet consensus of trust being rebuilt. A few officers nodded, their eyes showing newfound resolve. Lily had ignited a spark of change that everyone wanted to nurture. After the meeting, Lily stood alone by her office window, gazing at the city lights blending into a vibrant mosaic. Somewhere out there, the people she served were living their lives, and for Lily, that meant everything. Evelyn's words echoed in her mind. Justice isn't the end. It's a journey. And Lily knew her journey, though difficult, was on the right path. As she reflected, a question arose. If not her, who else would have stood up? Thinking of those who had begun to trust her, the community, her team, Lily felt a deep resolve. Justice wasn't just about leaders, it was about every individual willing to fight for it, even in small ways. What would you do in the face of injustice? Would you stand up or remain silent? Would you be willing to be part of the change, even with a small act? Share your thoughts in the comments and help spread the message of justice. The world needs not just brave leaders, but also united voices for a fairer society. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful journeys. Together, we can make a difference, starting with ourselves. Lily smiled faintly. The road ahead was long, but she was no longer alone. She had her team, her community, and, most importantly, an unwavering belief that real change was possible. Lily Moore's journey is a powerful testament to the strength of perseverance, integrity, and courage in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Her story isn't just about fighting corruption or reforming a system. It's a profound reminder that justice and trust can only thrive when there are people brave enough to stand up for them. What do you think of Lily's inspiring journey? In your opinion, what is the key to restoring trust and justice in society? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy stories like this one, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any inspiring content. Thank you for being with us, and see you in the next chapter.